Good evening. Welcome to the Candidates Forum presented by Franklin Tomorrow, Leadership Franklin, Williamson County Association of Realtors, and Williamson, Inc. Here are the rules. The program will consist of 4 parts: an opening 1-minute intro for each candidate, 2 rounds of questions for which candidates will be allowed 2-minute responses. The time limit will be enforced. Questions will be randomly drawn by each candidate and read by the moderator. Then, 1-minute closing remarks from each candidate. Everything is alphabetical. Our first introducer is Beverly K. Berger from the 1st Ward.
The red light gone? Good evening. I'm Alderman Bev Berger. I currently hold the Ward 1 seat, and it's an honor to serve the residents of Ward 1 for the past 16 years. I have a diverse background in writing and franchise sales, national ad writing, and have owned and managed the Berger Group, a marketing company, since 1996. I'm married to Dr. Ken Berger. We have 3 sons, Matt, Zach, Chris, daughter-in-law Courtney, and 4 grandchildren. And we've lived in Franklin 19 years. We saw Franklin grow and prosper in the 80s and 90s when we traveled here many times for our sporting events with our kids. Growth is a great problem to have, and indeed it brings challenges though. And as someone entrusted to lead this city the last 16 years, I'm still dedicated to listening and doing the hard work and making the decisions for our city. Those decisions will affect us for generations to come, and I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful for the work before us, which will be hard and challenging, and I'm committed to our citizens for a safe, secure, and prosperous Franklin. Thank you.
Candidates from the 2nd Ward. Matt Brown.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Matt Brown. You know, I've told the story of how we got here so many times. I'm going to save you that story tonight. And what I'll share with you is my hope of bringing my head, heart, and hands to this job. For those of you who don't know, I am a past CEO and a founder of a branding marketing company. I build strategic plans for a living. I'm also a moderator of focus groups, so I do professional research for a living. I also have a servant's heart. I've been serving this community through a lot of different nonprofits since we walked into Franklin here. It's part of why I love this place so much, is because when you think about our nonprofits, they really are at the core of our values here as a community. And lastly, my hands. There is nothing that I wouldn't do, no job I wouldn't do for this city. In fact, we've donated much of our space and our time and our profession as our business to the organizations and to the city here. So just know I'm anxious to serve you in those capacities. Thank you.
Angela Hubbard.
Hi, I'm Angela Hubbard, running for Ward 2 because I believe we need someone on the board that is that can formulate and stick to a plan, and I believe I can do that. When I first moved to Franklin, I was impressed by Franklin's plan for the city's future. I believe we have grown so quickly that we've made missteps on infrastructure. We need roads, sewage, and flooding issues to be addressed before we can approve other developments. If we have the infrastructure in place, then growth is sustainable. That's why I'm running to be a voice of common sense reasoning for all of Franklin.
Tina Pierrette.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening. I'm Tina Pierrette. I was raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm a graduate of Florida State University. And after living in New York City for a couple years, I finally returned to my home state since 2001. I worked and lived in Davidson County for a time, and then in 2013, moved to Franklin, where I live in Fieldstone Farms with my husband, Mark, and my stepchildren. As your new Ward 2 alderman, I am committed to understanding the needs and the concerns of our residents and bringing these to City Hall in leading and shaping the future of our ward and our city. We need well-planned, well-placed, and thoughtful developments that give us great places to live, work, shop, and enjoy life. We need to retain our high quality of life, which in turn attracts strong businesses that invest in our community and bring good job opportunities for our graduates. We should celebrate and protect our deeply rooted heritage and preserve the great sense of place we have in our downtown, which is a primary ingredient of the uniqueness that Franklin has to offer. And as we grow, we must continue to value and enhance the preservation of public green spaces. Thank you.
Mike Vaughn.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Vaughn. I'm an eighth-generation Tennessean from West Tennessee, and we've lived in the Nashville area since 1987, and since 2003 here in Franklin. In 1972, I visited Franklin as a young kid, and boy, has it changed since then. My wife, Joan, and I have two children who were born in Nashville, went to Nashville and Franklin K through 12 schools, then off to college. I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee at Martin and a graduate school at the University of Memphis. I have over 31 years' experience leading multinational projects in aerospace development, biotech, finance, and international trade. I was formerly on the board of directors of the Nashville International Chamber of Commerce, the American Chamber of Commerce in China, and InfraGard Board of Directors, a FBI organization focused on protecting critical infrastructures. But most importantly, my service as the Chestnut Bend HOA president for 5 years is really what motivated me to volunteer to be the next alderman in Ward 2. Tennessee values are what built Franklin, and I'll talk about my vision for the future when I have the opportunity next.
From the 3rd Ward, Jason Potts.
Hi, I'm Jason Potts, everyone. My wife and I have spent 16 of our 20 years of marriage living here in Franklin. We've raised 3 children, Carter 18, Sarah 15, Owen 12, in Maplewood. They're currently attending Freedom Middle School, Centennial High School, and the United States Air Force Academy. We attend and serve Rolling Hills Community Church, and we teach our children that through their actions, that their service to our family and to our church and to our community can be well represented. While living in Maplewood, I've served as a HOA president for 2 terms. I've served on the board of directors for an additional 4 years, and I'm also a founding member of the Franklin Alliance of Homeowners Associations that represents 16 HOAs in Ward 3. I'm one of the few candidates that's graduated from the Franklin Citizens Government Academy, and I'm running for Ward 3 alderman to continue serving and preserving our great community. I would greatly appreciate your vote for Ward 3.
Michelle Sutton.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Sutton, and I'm running for Franklin City Alderman in Ward 3. I have been married to my husband, Donnie, for the last 9 years. We've lived in Franklin for 8, and we have 2 young boys, Braxton, who is 7, and Cole, who is 5. So I am first and foremost a daughter of God. I'm a wife, a mom, a businesswoman, a friend, and a neighbor. I work for United Healthcare and have been there for the last 14 years. I am running to serve to be a strong and strategic voice for the residents and small business owners of Ward 3. I am passionate and I stand up for the things that I believe in. I am a communicator and I am a bridge builder. I possess a strong calling to serve our community, a desire to be a strong, sure voice for Ward 3. I will focus on 3 areas: growth, infrastructure, and communication. Franklin continues to be one of America's top cities to live in, and I firmly believe that it is the job of the alderman to protect the health, the safety, the well-being, and quality of life for all residents and businesses. And I would appreciate your vote on October 26th. Thank you.
From the 4th Ward, Patrick Baggett.
Hello, I'm Patrick Baggett. I am originally from Decatur, Alabama, and my wife, Amy, grew up here in Franklin, and we and our 3 daughters live downtown and love the city. And if you would like to see more about me, you can visit baggettward4.com and read more bio. But this isn't a venture into public service for me. This is a continuation of 11 years and a lifetime of learning by example of friends, family, and folks that I respect who have taken personal time, time away from their families, time away from their children, time away from their work to give back. Nothing to me is more fulfilling than serving this community. And I think that this role as Ward 4 Alderman and the relationships I've built through the organizations I've worked with give me a unique experience and passion and heart for serving the residents of Ward 4. I ask for your vote on October the 26th. Thank you.
Elizabeth Downing Wanzak.
Good evening, and thank you all so much for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Elizabeth Downing Wanzak. I am a 12-year resident of Franklin. My husband Nick and I moved here in 2009 when he was active duty in the Army. I am a graduate of the University of the South and moved to Tennessee in 2005 to attend there, but had been coming back and forth for the music industry. I had been professionally recording since I was 6 years old. I owned and operated a studio in Nashville called Right Off the Row until 2018, and come to this position with experience in small business, community service, and a true calling to serve our neighbor. I have had the honor to chair the Housing Commission for the city, serving on it since 2017 and chairing from 2018 to 2020. My family and I attend Christ United Methodist Church, and I would be truly honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Alderman at Large, Gabrielle Hansen.
I'm Gabrielle Hansen, the owner of Williamson Real Estate. I was voted Middle Tennessee's best realtor by the Tennessean. This year I had legislation passed with Senator Jack Johnson that allowed real estate professionals to be treated as an LLC and take advantage of the Tax Reform Act that took the taxes from the federal level and shifted them to local, county, and state governments. I'm a homeschool mom to a 17-year-old daughter. I've been married for 18 years to Tom and live in West Haven. We go to church at Grace Church behind Hobby Lobby. As we continue our emphasis on additions of world-class dining, shopping, and retail, and hopefully a new convention center someday, we can continue to add to our strong and diverse tax base and help keep your property taxes low. I want all the reasons that you love Franklin to be the reasons you continue to call Franklin your home. It's a treasure worth preserving for generations to come.
John E. Haynes.
Good evening. I'm John Haynes. God bless you. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to stand before you. I am a native of Franklin, been here all my life. I've pastored Burns Tabernacle Church for 22 years now. I have a beautiful wife, Julia, 5 children, adult children, remind you, and I have 9 grandchildren. I have served on the Community Housing Board for about 8 years. I also served as the Executive Director of United Community Resource Foundation. And I think that that gives me a reason, a unique reason, because I'm a native here, that I would be able to serve you with most honesty and directness, that we would be able to continue to grow and prosper in this very unique and fine city. Thank you.
Bhavani Kumar Muvala.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a realtor or a pastor or a politician. I'm just a simple family man, a businessman who has created companies, and I currently own a small business. And I'm also the president of 2 nonprofit organizations and the board member of Rotary, and a volunteer in several other organizations. I have been married for 28 years to a beautiful wife, and I have 2 kids. One is doing his residency in medicine, the other one is in his 8th grade. And I am living in Franklin for the past 12 years, and I call Franklin my home. I lived in 2 different continents, several cities across the United States, and I also serve Christ United Methodist Church. And I believe in controlled, balanced, and sustained growth for the city of Franklin. I believe in free market enterprise, private ownership, socially traditional conservative ideas. Thank you.
Alan Sims.
Good evening. My name is Alan Sims, and I want to be the next Alderman at Large for Franklin. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born and raised in Memphis. After college and living there for several years, I moved to Texas, where I lived for about 17 years before returning home to Tennessee in late 2014. I currently am an IT project manager with a small software development company here in Franklin. Franklin is my forever home, and I think it's important to give back to the community. I was the executive leadership committee that created, and I currently am an active volunteer with the Franklin Locals Program. I'm a commissioner on the Franklin Civil War Historic Commission. I am a board member of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I'm an active member of the Franklin Downtown Rotary Club. I want to be part of the city leadership, and I think I can be a good alderman. My dad told me, you do what you say, you do what you believe. So since moving to Franklin, I've been regularly attending BOMA meetings and other commission meetings to learn how the city runs and how decisions are made. I've also completed the Franklin Citizens Government Academy, the Franklin Citizens Police Academy, and the Franklin Citizens Fire Academy. I believe I can be effective and engaged almost immediately in this position, and I'm willing to put in whatever time is required to do that. Thank you.
The speaking order for each part will be determined, it says here, thusly. Opening remarks will follow a ward seat sequence, 1 through 4, followed by at-large, with candidates for each seat speaking in alphabetical order by last name. The first question round will then begin with the last speaker from opening remarks, following a sequence that is backwards from the previous round. This order will continue to alternate accordingly for each portion. Mr. Sims. There is a jar in front of you.
Yes, there is.
We looked for a pickle jar. We could not find one. I have the questions. You have the number. What number do you have, sir?
What question do you have? I have number 19, Tom. Do I win?
Number 19. Thank you. There are 26 questions in that jar. What role should density play in strategic growth and in creating a walkable community?
All right. We have a plan for our growth in our city. It's called Envision Franklin. And the density for the areas are defined in the Envision Franklin document. I believe we should follow that plan, but like any plan, we can update it as we need to. Also, a requirement of our zoning right now is that we have sidewalks and they're connected to pathways if appropriate for each new development. I would continue that as well, and that would let us have a more walkable area. Density, I'm not for changing the density that's currently defined in Envision Franklin until we change the plan itself. So obviously, if you're more dense, you're closer to walk together, but I would still say that we stay with Envision Franklin, the plan that we have in place right now.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Muvala.
Number 15.
Many people say Franklin isn't the town they grew up in or moved to any longer. When did you move to Franklin and why? And what steps would you suggest to ensure the quality of life for residents today and tomorrow is protected?
I moved to Franklin 12 years back, and the reason I moved to Franklin is for the job. And after moving to in fact, my boss asked me, like, have you ever been to Franklin or Tennessee? And I said no. But I said I can make the way there when I actually travel 10,000 miles. Franklin looks to be beautiful, a small city, people are friendly, loving, caring, and I think there is a calling from the God for me to be there so that I can stand in front of you today. And for Franklin, I think that we can do several things because I love Franklin and I know many of you are born here. I want to take care if possible, work on the infrastructure, the sewage, the clean water, the drinking water, and I stand for roads, broad roads, the sidewalks, and also create more employment and bring more growth, the sustainable, controlled, and balanced growth to the city so that everyone can enjoy the fruits of the growth and also live along with the preservation and also protection and safety for every citizen and every family member here and every kid of the town. So that today we know that Franklin is one of the best top cities, and we need to continue the next 10 years or the generations to come. So Franklin is the best, and I love Franklin, and you are my best. Please vote for me.
We've had two speakers, and neither one of them have come close to 2 minutes. So you see, we're going to be out of here before 7 o'clock. I think that answers the question that was asked before we started. John E. Haynes.
Mr. Lawrence, I have number 11.
Is regionalism important to you, and what is the basis for your opinion?
Would you repeat that again, sir?
Is regionalism important to you, and what is the basis of your opinion?
Yes, to me, Tom, regionalism is important to me because I think it's very important that a unique city like Franklin would be close knit, that we would depend on each other in order for this town to continue to grow. I think that the more that we allow one another to become involved, that we would continue to allow this city of Franklin to grow and everybody to be a part. So, yes, again, regionalism is important to me. Thank you.
Gabrielle Henson.
$25. We should have a blackout bingo board up here.
As housing and land prices are rising, there is a shortage of workforce housing. Do you think this is an issue? How would you address it?
I don't think anybody expected Franklin to ever be as popular as it is today. I also think that we didn't expect to see our housing prices skyrocket during the last 18 months. There's always a housing shortage when you have a popular community. We only have so much land. We only have so much capacity for our infrastructure. We do have a challenging position in front of us. Fortunately, our leadership at BOMA has seen that there are some challenging issues. We have tried to make some additions for that with some apartments and some other mixed-use housing in our community. I think it will continue to always be a problem as we retain our popularity nationally. Everybody wants to live in Franklin, whether they rent or purchase. So it's going to be an ongoing challenge for this board to take on to make sure that people who would like to live in Franklin and can afford to live in Franklin can actually realize their dreams.
Elizabeth Downing Wanzak.
I have question number 1, Tom.
As a newly elected alderman, you will be assigned to one of 2 committees. Which one would you choose and why?
Budget and finance. And my reasoning for that is I think everything comes back to we talk about fiscal responsibility, and that's the second part of my campaign platform. And I have run a small business, and I understand, frankly, how important it is to be good stewards of our taxpayer revenue. And Franklin is changing. We're going to be looking, the next BOMA, at making substantial capital changes, revenue changes, and we need to make sure that we are prioritizing funds in a way that really are addressing the needs of the residents. I'm deeply concerned about growth. I'm deeply concerned about how we are handling the growth and particularly how we're prioritizing infrastructure. And all these things come back to making sure that we have the funds to pay for them and making sure that we know what we're paying for, that we know what the costs are, that we know when we're talking to our residents that we can explain why we're working on certain projects. And there's certain things we need to be looking at that are currently under that, one of which is the extra 0.5% sales tax revenue that was raised in 2017 to go to the schools. That has sunset, and so that extra 0.5% is currently being considered for what they're doing with it. And I would like to see us considering potentially paying for the 2 police officer positions that are currently underfunded, or making sure that we need to spend that, and if we don't, remove that extra tax.
Patrick Baggett.
Number 26.
Nonprofits have always been a part of the fabric of our community. Please describe your experience with nonprofits and how you see the City of Franklin continuing to benefit from the services they provide.
Thank you, Tom. That speaks straight at the point of so much of why I'm doing this. I think I mentioned that on my intro. I'm currently board president of Franklin Tomorrow, past president of the county's oldest Rotary Club, the Franklin Noon Rotary Club, past president of their charitable foundation as well. I work in battlefield preservation with Franklin's Charge, and telling the fuller story is something that's very important to me in battlefield preservation, and I've supported that nonprofit work. I could continue on. I'm involved with the Friends of Franklin Parks, the Harlansdale Committee. But at the heart of what makes this community, when people wonder, what is that it factor about? There are lots of cities that have old buildings. Okay, you can throw a dart on the map of the South and you'll find a main street with beautiful old architecture. But what's different about Franklin is the people that have come together to preserve that through nonprofits like the Heritage Foundation and others. It's the people who give back like no other community that I know of. We raised Friends of Franklin Parks raised $600,000 in an evening to renovate the Hayes House at Harlansdale. That is unheard of. The Rotary Club has given millions of dollars over the last 70 years from a rodeo that started in downtown Franklin. This place is special, and it's special because of our nonprofits. And if we don't, as a city, continue to support those nonprofits, not with our money necessarily, not with our, but with our spirit, with the spirit of the city, supporting nonprofits that get things done. Public-private partnerships are at the heart of making things in Franklin, or of us progressing in a manner that meets the residents' needs. So all 4 public-private partnerships with nonprofits, and appreciate all those involved in nonprofits throughout the community. Thank you.
Michelle Sutton.
Number 3.
You have been campaigning for some time now in your ward. What are the issues you have identified, and how would you address them?
Absolutely. So when I am knocking doors during the week and on the weekends and meeting with my neighbors in varying communities throughout Ward 3, there are really 3 things that come to mind, and they're the top 3 priorities that are of my campaign as well. One is the growth, and I think you've probably heard every single person up here mention that thus far. Our community is concerned with how fast we're growing. They're concerned with where that growth is going to go. And so secondly is the infrastructure to support that growth. They're concerned with the roads and the traffic. I probably get 2-3 emails a week just on the traffic alone and asking questions about the traffic and how we're going to address that. You've got sewer and you've got water as well that go along with, the growth. And thirdly is communication. So I'll address the growth and infrastructure together. So first and foremost, I will be a listener. I will ask questions. I will listen to my constituents. I will listen to the small business owners. I will listen to the city staff. I will listen to those in the community whose job it is to build the buildings, to build these wonderful places that we, live and work and play in. So that will be, what I will do for the growth in the infrastructure. Secondly, with communication. Communication is my background. That's what I graduated from the University of Tennessee with. And so I want to make sure that we are active and proactive communicators with our residents. A lot of times you'll see an Envision Franklin sign, and at that point it's usually too late. And so I want to make sure our residents and our small business owners know what's going on prior to that happening and that they understand the why. I think that's one thing that's lacking is the why is this happening. And so I want to make sure that we communicate that. I want to make sure that we communicate with our county commissioners. I want to make sure that we communicate with our school board and communicate with the other cities within Williamson County. Thank you.
Jason Potts.
Number 14, Tom.
For a city experiencing the growth in population that Franklin has in the last 10 years, should there be a change in the form of government, and is the Board of Mayor and Aldermen appropriately sized for representation for this growing city? What form would you support?
Well, Tom, thank you for the question. I think this is a great question for me to address. This is something that when we first sat down and we started looking at our ward, we started looking at the population, my first thought was, what's our ratio for resident to alderman? And also, what's our ratio for resident to at-large alderman? And so it's, as we sit here and we look at our map right here, we have substantial growth in Ward 3, and we're told it's the fastest growing. So is there the potential for an adjustment somewhere in the future? Tom, it's very possible that we may need some type of an adjustment. It is an additional at-large alderman. I would certainly be open to exploring that. I know that these are questions that our city, the Planning Commission, and our Board of Aldermen have also addressed outside of their standing meetings. So as far as making an adjustment right out of the gate, no, I don't think that you need to do that. But as we take a look at what the growth is, and as I learned when I went through the Franklin Citizens Government Academy in 2015, our population then was roughly 60,000 people. By the time that we get to 2030, and let me back up just 1 second, at 2015, we're approximately 48 square miles when you look at the map here. By the time that we get to 2030, we'll have annexed approximately 38 additional square miles, moving our total population to close to 130,000 residents. So is there a need for us to possibly adapt and to move our organization forward as far as our BOMA structure? That is something that we may need to revisit. So, Tom, I appreciate the question, and I look forward to serving in Ward 3 and helping to address this, because it is our ward is fast and it is growing, and I look forward to serving all of the residents that are there.
Mike Vaughn.
Number 35. Number 7.
Number 7. What is managed growth to you?
Managed growth. Well, thought I've had about growth in Franklin is also goes back to the culture of the BOMA. It seems that when I'm talking to people in Ward 2, that we've got a culture at the BOMA that is developer driven. So managed growth turns into a question about when do we ever reach that place in our growth where we are at equilibrium or balance so that we don't have to grow anymore. So that's a finance question, because the way the city finances are put together, it's sales tax driven, property tax driven. You have your basic expenses that you have to cover continuously, plus your debt. So managed growth to me means at least identifying some of the areas in the city that are worth protecting. So I'll go ahead and make the announcement. I was going to use it in my closing, but since I have time. For example, what happens when Legends decides to move and go to the Golf Club of Tennessee, and which that's a very likely scenario? You'll have 25 acres smack dab in the middle of Franklin that should be possibly a green space. So an idea to consider would be to use community land trust to acquire available properties. And possibly would it be neat to have, like a world-class city where I've been all over the world going to these types of green spaces, why can't we have a botanical garden right here in Franklin, the Heritage Botanical Gardens, as a new attraction, so that we can, as a community, start to manage the green spaces and the available properties and protect them rather than automatically putting them in the development cycle. So that's one way to manage the growth, would be to identify and preserve those areas that we all want for our common shared natural amenities. So that's one way.
Tina Pierrett.
Number 22.
A preliminary master plan for the redevelopment of City Hall on the public square is under development and review by city officials and the public. What do you envision as priorities for Franklin's new City Hall?
Well, as someone with a history of helping people find a place to live that everybody wants to be, I know that we need some updates. I want this to be a building that speaks to the inspiration that Franklin is to people around the country and around the world. People want to live here because we are so steeped in our heritage, we celebrate it, and it shows up in our architecture. I think it's an opportunity to build something that is a beacon of everything else that Franklin stands for. There was a question about, I've had several conversations with sitting aldermen also about the location. And I think that's something that's been in discussion for quite some time in our city. because we are a city that values tradition and we have strong relationships with places, I think it's probably the best idea to make sure we invest what we need to long-term to keep City Hall where it is today. I think people like knowing where to go to listen to the BOMA meetings. And that's an important part of a city that celebrates tradition. Thank you.
Angela Hubbard.
Question 10.
Mayor Kenmore, nothing personal. You're elected to be vice mayor of Beaumont. The mayor is unexpectedly unable to serve for various reasons. What would be your first actions?
Well, I feel like the board runs pretty smoothly with or without the mayor. And in all honesty, Bev is probably still around, so she'll be mayor. But as a newly appointed mayor, I would gather in the troops and form a alliance, a new alliance, and make sure that everyone knows that I will do whatever it is to support whatever the issues are.
Matt Brown.
Number 20, Tom.
For the first time in more than 20 years, Williamson County and its municipalities are evaluating whether to adjust their urban growth boundaries. Should Franklin maintain, expand, or reduce its existing boundaries, and why?
Thanks for the question, Tom, on urban growth boundaries. I think there's an inevitability of our growth to accommodate the influx of people who want to call Franklin home. As has been said by others, we've created an environment here, a culture here, a community here where people seek it out. I will tell you from my knocking doors in this community, the people that I meet on the other end of the door, the people who come out and step on the doorstep, the people who invite me in to have tea, are people who sought this place out either because they were called to be here, and I believe there's a lot of those folks, or they chose this place because of what this place represents to them. I don't believe that everyone who is moving into this place is looking to change this place. And so I do think we need to be looking at how do we accommodate growth. However, I will tell you that just pushing growth out into our urban areas, out into our fields, out into our empty places is not a priority for me at the onset. I believe in preserving and protecting what makes this place great. There's an analogy or metaphor I heard the other day that I want to share about Franklin, and it's something that I hear from people all the time. You know, if you go up to watch the Cumberland River and you kind of look out at the river and it looks like it's a nice little peaceful flow, if you got into a boat on the Cumberland River, you would definitely feel yourself sort of drifting along. If you were to climb out of that boat and actually try to hold that boat back, you would know just how fast and just how strong that river is actually flowing. I think a lot of people here in Franklin feel like they are literally standing in a river trying to hold that boat back, and it is moving fast and it is moving strong. What I would tell you is we need to slow it down, we need to control it, and we need to give our residents a chance to enjoy this place, hold on to their values, and let's get back in the boat and enjoy the ride. Thank you.
Beverly Berger.
Number 21, Tom.
Does the city of Franklin need a new wastewater treatment plant to serve the southeastern part of the city? If so, how would you pay for this capital investment?
We just are investing close to $100 million in a new wastewater plant, and we haven't done that lightly. It's taken us a long time to come to that conclusion of how to, well, first of all, the best technology to employ with that. We went to Europe, we looked at many places and looked at their hydraulics and looked at everything that they do at these different plants and what would fit our community. We made that decision and we went forward with it. We went through the government, the Tennessee Revolving Fund, to get a lower fund rate, which we did. Saved us, I think, around $30 million. We are planning right now for our growth. We are meeting that growth, but growth is nipping at our heels every single day. So we do own property in the southeast for a new plant that we might need in the very near future. I believe that we are a very fiscally responsible city. We don't go into a lot of debt. We wait upon the rates and the bonds, and we strike when the iron is hot, so to speak, in order to for us to get the lowest rates. We are a AAA bond-rated city, so we are able to obtain the best rates that we can when we have to take loans and bonds out. So I think that we will seriously, in the next 4 years on this board, we will be discussing this to the nth degree, because we are going to need to start to plan that southeast plant. And that is going to happen. I couldn't tell you when, but those are going to be some very serious discussions with this new board. The new people on this board, get ready, because we have a lot of homework to do to figure out how and when and how we will pay for it. But I think, again, we are fiscally responsible, so we won't be frivolous and throwing money away. And there are always places in government to cut. Thank you.
That's the first round of questions. We begin the second round of questions. Understand that we are to reverse order. Gabrielle Hansen.
$18.
18, did you say?
18.
Do you favor expansion of the non-motorized transportation network of sidewalks, trails, greenways, and possible access to the Harpeth River through a river walk? Have you identified any sidewalk gaps in your ward during your campaigning? And please list some of those. You don't have a ward, you have a city.
I have a whole city, and there are a whole lot of sidewalks being constructed, so until they're done, I really couldn't answer that question knowledgeably. But I can say I'm very pleased with the addition of the extra wide sidewalks they're putting in that add mobility all the way down 96, all the way through downtown, all the way down through West Haven into our lush rolling hills, valleys, and pastures. It's been a very welcome change. I'm fortunate that the neighborhood I live in is connected with sidewalks. I do believe in expansion of those sidewalks. We're a very walkable community. People love Franklin because of our walkability, because of our lifestyle. We can walk to a shop, we can walk to a neighbor, we can just go and enjoy the nature that we have. You can see people running, people with strollers, people on bikes. I am not a fan of bike lanes. We have a dangerous situation now, but our roads are so narrow, I think it could be challenging for those non-motorized bike lanes. I don't know about the Riverwalk, I'm not knowledgeable on that, but I do love the Connect Franklin plan that is in place, and I think Franklin has made a very, very concerted effort to keep people mobile and link community to community.
John E. Haynes.
I have number 12, Tom.
Why is reclaimed water important?
Why is reclaimed water important?
Yes, sir.
Tom, if you could help me, would you kind of give me a definition on reclaimed?
Reclaimed water is recycled water, water used for the second time. Franklin has quite a bit of it.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I do think that reclaimed water is important because of how we can repurify, if I can use it in that term, and not waste our water and the system. I think we in Franklin have a good system in place. So with that happening, that we would be able to efficiently recycle and reclaim our water, that our city, our people would be able to use it in the most productive way. Thank you.
Bhavani Kumar Muvala. Number 8.
17.
17. What is the right mix of rental to ownership housing in our community, and what role do rentals play in attainable housing for our growing job market?
I think this is an excellent question. Based on whatever we are talking about, the controlled growth, sustained growth, creating opportunities, and people, everyone need to have attainment with a living or a place to live. Either they need to rent or they need to buy. But based on the current statistics across the country and especially in Franklin, the affordability to buy homes, the attainability to buy homes is actually decreasing, but still the police people, the fire service people, and the teachers and the kids, everyone needs to lead, and they need to live here. In order for that, I think we need to have the apartments, and I am for it. But we need to make sure that we preserve the current beauty, current play, how it looks, green space. But this particular apartment or the growth, whatever we can say, like 60% residential, 40% apartment, needs to be in a place where we are not congested with the traffic, where we have proper transportation, and where people and kids can move around freely. So I believe strongly there should be a mix of single-family residences and also the apartments, so that everyone can feel Franklin as their place and they can live here and it can be attainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Sims. Do you feel growth pays for itself? Why? Why not?
Wow. I think that's a very good question, Tom, and it's a question that all cities probably struggle with. Growth probably doesn't pay for itself generally, and so that's why taxes get raised. I do like the idea that we have here in Franklin where we have impact fees, and that helps balance some of that cost between the city and the developer. That seems to me to be the most fair way to do this. I don't know if the fees are set exactly the way they should be set as far as percentages and everything, but the concept itself seems very fair to me. That way, neither the city nor the developer is taking the whole cost on themselves. So I'm going to stop there.
Beverly K. Berger. What does the K stand for?
Okay. That's right. Kate. Well, what should it be? 6 or 9? I don't know. I think it is. Are there any other single digits up here? Let me see if it's on the side. Wait a minute. Here's a 7, so it's, I guess it's that way. So it must be 9.
What led you to want to run for this office?
Well,
It's a 6.
it's a 6. Yes. Can we try 6? I really would like a harder question. Golly, I want to talk about issues here. I really do. Yeah, can I talk about anything I wanted to talk about? That'd be great. No, in 2005, I ran for office. I lived here a year and a half, but I'd been coming to Franklin a long time. And I watched it change. And I watched it change. In fact, our kids in the soccer team were the first people that actually ate in the food court of the new mall. And I think we should have gotten some prize for that. But when I ran, my father always said, be a part of your community wherever you go. Be a part of the solution, never be a part of the problem. And my father was a huge influence in my life. So was my mother, but my dad, I'm very much like my father. And when I got here, when I found out the incumbent wasn't running, I thought, aha, I'd worked in a lot of political realms for years. In fact, I grew up in a very political family. Started at age 3. And so I saw an opportunity to serve a city that I loved already, had loved for years, and couldn't wait to get here when we had the opportunity to move here. So I ran for office, and I knew how to run a campaign, walked out 22,000 some odd homes, and I won by 24 votes. And the people that ran against me, one of the ladies said to me 3 months later, I'm so glad you won. And she supported me the next time in my election 4 years later. And it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the people in Ward 1. And from everything from taking out a dead deer in your backyard to finding water coming in your house to building a road to whatever it is. And I go to my constituents every single time and say, do you want me to run again? I go to the people that are not necessarily like-minded as well. And they've overwhelmingly asked me. In fact, last October, a lot of them invited me around their camp out, fire in their backyard to ask me to run again. So I'm running. We need to get McEwen Phase 4 done. We need to get a lot of things done in the city. I have the experience that I'm bringing, and it's an honor and a privilege. And I'm willing and able to give my time and my energy again. Thank you.
Matt Brown.
Number 5, Tom.
What are your takeaways from your campaign efforts?
Well, they've been incredibly consistent. I mentioned a little earlier in the last question, especially in Ward 2, I think people really in Ward 2 feel like we're sort of ground zero for a lot of incredible change and growth. You know, I've heard, I think Bev, it may have even been you that said that, you know, all the easy land has been developed. You know, we've got a lot of hard parcels left in Ward 2. Franklin Road, Brownland, along Mac Hatcher, some of the final rural entryways coming into downtown. You know, one of the great things about this city that keeps our property taxes down is the fact that we receive so much great tourism dollars and sales tax to help us out with that. And the thought for me of seeing Franklin turn into something that doesn't attract those visitors, something that looks like anywhere else, not preserving and protecting the very culture, the very values, and the very aesthetics of our town that changes that dynamic is a threat to small businesses on Main Street. It's a threat to our tourism, and it's a threat to our community as residents. So for me, there is no doubt that the people in Ward 2 especially, growth is the number one concern, protecting small business is number 2, and most importantly, I will tell you, everybody sees growth differently. You know, some people see growth as being aesthetic, some see it as traffic, some see growth as being a school issue, some see growth as being floodplain issues. But at the end of the day, what people really just don't want to have happen is for Franklin to not be the Franklin that we all love to live in, to work in, and to play in, and to visit. So preserving and protecting Franklin is important to hold on to our values. Thank you so much.
Angela Hubbard. What is your time commitment to being an alderman?
That's a great question. I am a firm believer in limits, term limits. We are a city that is changing. We have changed, and we will continue to change. That's inevitable. The question is, if you sit in charge for so long, you get comfortable, and you're not willing to change with the people that are requiring you to change. And so my personal take is if you can't do it in 2 terms, step aside anyway for the rest of us so that we may give a new voice to the people of Franklin.
Tina Pierrette.
$13. I'm ready.
How important is preservation to the city of Franklin, and what role should the city play in significant projects and setting priorities? Where should the next big effort be focused? How should the city pursue future preservation efforts?
You want me to answer those in reverse part order?
Any way you would like.
Okay, great. So I was at the Raise the Roofs fundraiser event at Harlansdale Park, which is a treasure of the Ward 2 community and something I'm very proud to have access to. Like Patrick said, we raised $600,000 in one night. You can swing a very short bat in this town and hit a building where someone is sitting working for a nonprofit that has to do with preservation of Franklin. It is a high priority for our citizens. I think it's an important part of our economic engine. People come to this city to see something they can't see anywhere else. You can't see the Carter House anywhere else. It's one of the best things I did with my family. My dad came to visit me here for the first time. We took him to the Carter House, and those docents have done all of their homework, and they weave this fascinating tale of what happened in the Battle of Franklin. You feel like you were there. It rivals anything that I've seen on a New York stage. So it's something that's very important, not only to the locals, but driving people to come here and spend their dollars and support our small business owners. Small businesses have been hurting over the last 18 months. And we need to keep in mind, what can we do? What priorities can we set to drive people here, to keep people out and spending their dollars? So I appreciate the question, and I'm proud to live in a town that is steeped in history and values preserving it.
Mike Vaughn.
Dorsey says 16.
While preliminary census figures show Franklin as a predominantly white community, it also shows a growing diversity among those identifying as Asian and Hispanic, while our black population holds steady. How would you make Franklin a more inclusive community for everyone?
Well, I think the character of Franklin is such that our heritage is based on people getting along. I mean, that's a Tennessee value. People are accepting of other cultures. I know myself, I've been around the world and been in all kinds of different cultures, and it's just something you learn that's innate in your character growing up. So how do you accommodate a growing diversity workforce here in Franklin? I think you have to be accepting of all cultures. That's in my own our own family. I mean, we've had different cultures, China, I mean, just all over the world coming through our house. And so you teach that in your churches, in your community groups. You teach that diversity is acceptable. I don't know any other way myself. So, what do you have to do to accommodate other cultures? Well, other cultures, if they're not Judeo-Christian, they're going to have their own acts of faith that you have to be respectful of, traditions, things like that. But that doesn't mean you have to change the core bedrock of what Franklin is, and it was built on those Tennessee values of respect for your neighbor and tolerance. And so, that should be something that is built into our community, and if we find it where it's not that way, we should address it immediately and deal with it. There is no tolerance for racism or discrimination in my viewpoint, so.
Jason Potts.
Well, Tom, it appears that I either have the other 6 or the other 9, whichever way you'd like to take it, sir.
You have number 6, sir. What life experiences have you had that will help you be a good alderman?
Tom, thanks for the question. I think one that immediately comes to mind, I mentioned it earlier and had the privilege, and Mayor Moore was there when I attended the Franklin Citizens Government Academy. It's a multi-week program. Every Monday night we sat down with a different director to learn about how the city was actually run, all right? That told me what I needed to learn about the city of Franklin. And sitting down and making telephone calls after that in association with that course that we were taking, and then meeting and spending time with our Franklin firefighters. Number 2 station is across the street from Maplewood, where I live, and spending time with them and creating a bond over the past 15 years with that particular station, and even now with number 7 over by the Ag Center. Every single 4th of July, our fire station shows out. We feed them, we give them lots of treats, they come out, they have a great time with the kids, but it's given me the opportunity to interact with them. I think also my experience to being able to work on both the domestic and the international level doing consulting out of the Philippines, India, and here within the United States is a big, big contributor to my life experience. It allows me to sit down with people who come from different walks of life and people who I may not necessarily agree with, but I can sit down and have a civil conversation with them. I can actually embrace what they are sharing with me and then help me to make that decision. I also think some of the other things that, as far as my life experience goes, is traveling across the country and working out of Seattle and seeing all the great things they had in Seattle or in Austin, Texas. I remember when I first moved here, we didn't have a recycling program, but I picked up the phone and made a telephone call and actually called another former alderman, Mike Skinner. I said, hey, I just moved to Franklin. I want to get a recycling program started, and shared what Austin had been doing. So I bring a lot from a number of cities, but the biggest thing that I think I bring is just my family and who we are at our core values. And going back to what you were saying, it is about Tennessee values, and it's about what makes Franklin special. So thank you, Tom.
Michelle Sutton.
I saw it. It's my favorite number. I'll take number 2.
There is a rezoning of property that has the community riled up. At the board
No.
meeting,
Really?
you see half the room has blue buttons, the other half has red buttons. Your neighbors are equally distributed on each side. Solomon, how do you handle this situation?
So like I stated in my last question with communication, first and foremost, it's making sure that before that meeting happens, that I'm meeting with my constituents, that I'm meeting with those residents in Ward 3 and also within the city of Franklin, making sure that I'm meeting with both sides, making sure I'm hearing the story, the concerns on both sides, making sure that I'm meeting with the city, making sure that I'm meeting with the developer, and asking all of the poignant and important questions that come along with any development. I have been in meetings like that, wearing shirts and buttons myself, and you know, part of the reason why I've decided to run. So again, I think it's just really important to listen to your constituents and come out. I will always come out and see things firsthand myself in person. I think that's really important to make sure that you put your eyes on it. Again, I've been in situations where aldermen did not show up and did not put their eyes on it themselves. And so that is a promise that I've made to the people that I am meeting with as I door knock, that I meet with people on site, because it's really important. But again, it's just making those informed decisions, making sure that I have all the information when it comes to the decision making, if there is buttons and shirts on both sides of the fence. So, thank you.
Patrick Baggett.
Number 4.
What is your area of focus during and after the election, and what would you change in our city?
All right, my area of focus. I
Yes,
think
sir.
the thing that has come up routinely, and we've heard a lot about it tonight, is growth and development, and a plan, and a strategy. And I think that also touches the housing affordability issue that the city is facing. And I think what has to be done, and is on the plan, mind you, it is already on the plan, that Envision Franklin receives a refresh in the coming year. But I think I think an area of focus for me would be to take that process and pump it up a little bit more than probably planned so that we can get it right. Because we're seeing developments that have more and more controversy, that they don't meet Envision Franklin, they do. The development community wants one thing, the citizens want another. And it's time, I think 5 years has gone by, and by that time it'll be 6. And it's very important. And that doesn't mean we're changing Envision Franklin to make it more generous to development, or necessarily less generous to development. What it is we've got to make sure it matches. Like Matt said, the properties that we have left, we're in a constituent described it to me the other day as we're in the dessert phase. So we've had a wonderful meal here in Franklin, and now we get to pick exactly what we want. And to do that, we must take a look at some of the areas, quite frankly, in Envision Franklin that need some refinement. And it's not major shifts, but things that we have seen, the issues that we've seen brought up over the last 5 years that could be addressed in some tweaks and more input from our new citizens here that live in Franklin. Let's get their input. Let's take that through. So that would be one of my major areas of focus in the first 12 months.
Elizabeth Downing Wanzak.
Question number 23.
With the dedication later this month, or early next month, or early next year, the northwest extension of the Mac Hatcher bypass, what would be your next priority in terms of road projects inside the city of Franklin, and why?
So as I have been door knocking, we discuss Mac Hatcher just about every single day. And as far as Ward 4, the extension of Mac Hatcher is about to be a game changer for traffic congestion, and particularly to my side of Ward 4, which is on the other side of downtown heading out towards West Haven. Being able to get home and not have to go directly through downtown, as much as I love driving through our beautiful Main Street, will mean commuting, especially for my husband to work and things, easier, and for our residents. That said, we have some, in Ward 4, some things that need expanding. I think the first thing that I'm hearing as I'm door knocking and I want a traffic study done on, particularly because of some of the development that is proposed, is Boyd Mill, particularly the old part of Boyd Mill. The short property that has been annexed and for the West Haven extension, some of the current proposals is to have that to exit onto Boyd Mill. And 4 years ago when I ran previously, there was concern that the Bishop's Gate development was actually going to be more capacity than Boyd Mill could support at the time. And so I would like to see that addressed. And then more than that, I would like to see the city of Franklin, and I am more than happy if elected aldermen to go sit in Sam Whitson's office, our state representative for District 65, and to talk about finishing the Mac Hatcher loop. We needed it yesterday, and it's currently not on the state's 20-year plan. And I think there's an opportunity for the city to advocate, for the elected aldermen to advocate, particularly for the Ward 4 aldermen to advocate, to finish that loop so that we can really truly have a bypass around the inner city for things like moving vans and commercial traffic, to preserve a more residential and commercial tourism, less heavy traffic through our main area.
Stay there, please. As I understand the rules, and we're almost on schedule. As I understand the rules, we reverse order. You have 60 seconds to close.
I realized in my opening I didn't also mention that I am the mom of 2 young children. I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And I wake up just about every single day beyond tickled pink that I get to raise my family in Franklin. As I said before, my husband and I moved here in 2009. We bought our house in March of 2009. We got married in September of 2009, and he deployed for his second tour of Iraq in October of 2009. And this city not only welcomed me and welcomed us, but starting to watch things like closed-circuit BOMA meetings gave me an opportunity to get involved and to find a place to truly sprout roots. I believe in service. Service is in the baseline of my family and giving back to our community. I've had the privilege doing so by serving on the Housing Commission. I have been asked to run for this position by my neighbors, and I would be truly honored to be elected your Ward 4 alderman on October 26th. Thank you.
Patrick Baggett.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the organizations that put this on this evening. Wonderful format. Thank you for having it and adding it to the schedule. I think the theme you've heard tonight, hopefully from me, is that we need to be intentional. We need to be intentional about what the next 20 years looks like in Franklin. We don't need necessarily more of the same. We need smart continuation of the principles and values of Franklin with a fresh set of ideas, a fresh set of eyes. We need to preserve what we love about Franklin, but prepare for the future. And we need young leadership, in my case, and I think that is an attribute. I have 3 children that I'm raising here in Franklin. My wife grew up in Franklin, and we contrast that continually in our household and describe what was and what is. And I am here because it is a value of our family that what is for our children is as good, if not better, than what it was for my wife. So I appreciate your vote. Thanks so much.
Michelle Sutton.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone's time tonight. I grew up moving around the country. My dad is a 21-year Air Force veteran, and so I've seen a lot of this country. I lived in 8 different states. And we are truly blessed to live in this wonderful city. I met with Senator Jack Johnson, and we talked about how Franklin is like Disneyland. And I want to maintain that Disney feel, that magic of Franklin. I want to be a strong, strategic voice for the residents and small business owners of Ward 3. I want to serve this community. It does my heart so much good to serve this community, and I want to continue doing so. So I would be honored to earn your vote on October 26th. Thank you so much.
Jason Potts.
Thanks, Tom. I'd also like to thank all of the groups that were responsible for organizing tonight's event. I thought this was great. This is a great way to see what every single one of the candidates brings to the table. I also want to thank you for talking about closing the Mack Hatcher Loop. That is so awesome. I'm just having visions of actually being able to drive without too much traffic around town right now. I am very excited to represent Ward 3. As I said, we've been here in Franklin for over 16 years now, and in that time, we've loved every minute of it. I've woken up the same way, and I have traveled to every single NFL city for work, and to many, many more cities around our country. And it literally came down to Franklin and one other city, and as a matter of fact, we lived in it. It was Austin, Texas, and it was great, but you know something? Franklin's even better. All right? And so I believe that I have the right skills, the right mindset, my heart is in the right place to serve for Ward 3, and I would really appreciate your vote. And I'd like to also thank all of the candidates that have been participating in this campaign. It's been so above board, and it's been really uplifting. So thanks for everybody in this experience.
Mike Vaughn.
Again, thanks to everybody who put this on. As someone who has traveled the world, I've been to, 26 different countries. I've seen the best and the worst of the world. But one thing that I've noticed is Franklin is emerging and will soon become, it could be, a global destination for Southern charm, as I call it. We don't need to recruit everybody in the world to come live here. We can focus on tourism. We can focus on the qualities that we have to offer these amenities that do create revenues for the city. So we could expand our infrastructure by becoming a smart city. I'm a member of the Smart City Council International, and the IT of the world, the Internet of Things, is coming. We need to integrate all the technology we can into our small city, keeping it small, keeping the traditional values that we have, the Tennessee values that we have, and work off of those, but we need to prepare for the future because it's coming. And I want to represent Ward 2 because I'm a resident of Franklin. I care about Franklin. It's just, I'm not going anywhere. So it's time to serve, and I'm volunteering. Appreciate your vote. Thanks.
Tina Pierrette.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Again, I'm Tina Pierrette, running for the Ward 2 Alderman position, being vacated by Dana McClendon after 24 years. And part of the reason I'm standing here today is because I'm someone who shows up. I just keep showing up. When I joined the Williamson County Association of Realtors when I moved here to Franklin, I was newer to Williamson County. Most of my business, 17 years of real estate, had been in Davidson County. So I was meeting a lot of new people and wanted to make some great connections. And I did. And after just a few years, my peers nominated me to chair the Government Affairs Committee. And that was such an honor. And it opened up my world to how many opportunities there are to serve in our community. And I firmly believe that serving people is a critical part of living a purposeful life. So I'm here to serve the needs of the people of Franklin, to help solve their problems and grow this great city in a smart way that prepares it for the generations to come. I'm Tina Pierrette, and I ask for your vote this October. It'll be an honor to serve you. Thank you.
Angela Hubbard.
I believe we have allowed our want to grow to influence our need for infrastructure. I do not, nor will I ever believe, since I live in Franklin, I should expect a flood. As a board member, I will listen to our experts. We pay them. I need to listen to them. And more importantly, the community as a whole, so we can avoid any missteps in our future plans. I will always put the community's safety first. I can stick to a plan, a checklist, and make the city of Franklin all we want it to be. I would appreciate your vote for Angela Hubbard on election day so we can get back to common sense planning for the whole community.
Matt Brown.
My family and I chose Franklin. When I told my kids, when I asked them about running for alderman, they actually said they'd be disappointed if I didn't. They knew where my heart was. Many of you have met my wife. She's covered as many houses as I have on this campaign. She's hung door tags, knocked doors, and had conversations. I've had a few people tell me she's the better half of this candidacy for sure, and I agree. The thing is, when you choose a place, is that you don't take it for granted. I love Franklin. My family and I want it to be this great Franklin that we all love to work in and to play in. You know, getting to the top took generations of great, smart people who got Franklin to where it is today that we all enjoy. But sitting at the top doesn't happen by accident. It means being intentional. As a brand guy, I will tell you, you can get to the top as a brand, but staying there is harder than it is to actually get there in the first place. It will take strategic planning, it'll take intentionality, and I don't ascribe to the idea that it's all so far gone that there's nothing that we can do, that we have to just accept what is coming our way. I believe we have the ability to chart our course, to strategically plan where we want to go. I'm asking for your vote on October 6th, 26th. Yeah, no, vote early, October 6th.
Bev Berger.
Before you start that clock, Angela, the job of the vice mayor is to pray for the health of the mayor. We all say that on the board, and I'm thrilled with younger leadership. We need that. We need that. Okay. In my opening remarks, I mentioned growth is a good problem to have, and truly it is. But there's a lot of work to do, a lot of decisions to be made that will affect generations to come. And you can't say much in a minute. So I'll just close by saying that what's near and dear to my heart, I'm thankful, first of all, to my Lord and God for my life and my eternal life. I'm proud of my incredible family, who I dearly love and who've made me so proud. I've lived in many states, I've lived overseas, and I'm grateful to call Franklin home. I'm honored to have been elected to this office and served for 16 years. It's been my pleasure, my honor to serve the residents of Ward 1 and will be in this new term. I covet your support, I covet your vote, and I will be your voice again. I thank you, Ward 1 citizens, for your trust and your vote to roll up our sleeves together and work together to protect, to preserve, and to prosper the quality of life that we have here. And not only that, but to protect our freedoms and our liberties that are so dear today. Thank you.
Alan Sims.
I'm an optimist, and I see tons of good here in Franklin. As a city leader, I want to ensure that we continue to build on that good. There's 3 areas of focus that are important to me: maintaining our conservative fiscal policy, diligently and thoughtfully managing our growth, and championing the people that protect and serve us. I believe that the skills that have made me an effective and successful project manager will make me an effective and successful alderman. Skills like leadership, collaboration and communication, problem solving and analysis, negotiation and adaptability, and risk management, just to name a few. When presented with a problem, I won't subscribe to the zero-sum negative solution where you win and therefore I lose. I believe, especially in Franklin, that we can come together and have solutions where we all win. An additional skill that I think is important for an alderman is that they're an advocate for the city. Many of you may have seen me in downtown Franklin on the weekends at the corner of 4th and Main, engaging our visitors and telling them about Franklin as a member of the Franklin Locals program. I am very proud to be an ambassador for the city of Franklin. I would be very honored to be an advocate for all the citizens of Franklin as your at-large alderman. Thank you.
Bhavani Kumar Mavala.
I am a self-made man, and I am the most diversified candidate for this position. I want to be the servant of the public and Lord, and I would engage myself to reflect the values of family, work, progress, neighborhood, peace, freedom, equality, diversity, preservation of Franklin's culture, beauty, and safety, and the fiscal responsibility and the policies related to the smart city growth. I would also like to work to reduce the taxes, create more employment opportunities, and I value the idea of maintaining the Franklin city's high levels of economic development and quality of better life. And I thank everyone who organized tonight. Thank you very much, and I truly love you and care. I love the city, and it's a God's calling, and this week is my birthday. I think next week I'm going to win.
John E. Haynes.
Tom, I have not heard the letter E mentioning my name so much in my 66 years. I'm gonna end the way that I began, and that is to say I am a native of Franklin. In some layman terms, I'm your brother from another mother. I am also your son that have been raised here all my life, have seen the good, I've seen the bad. I've been a part of both sides. I think that by choosing me to be your alderman at large, you will see what has become of you as a city, as a town, unique. If you would just look at me and say, hey, this man is the right man for the job. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless Franklin, Tennessee.
Gabrielle Hanson.
This is a pivotal moment for Franklin, with 4 new ward aldermen about to be elected. The decisions that they will make over the next few years can forever change the face of Franklin. As your alderman at large, I will maintain wise fiscal management and continue to make public safety a priority. I am against all mandates. I believe your health is a private matter between you and your medical professional. All businesses are considered essential to someone. They should remain open, including our churches. I believe government should stay out of our personal lives and also out of our pocketbooks. I'm Gabrielle Hanson, and I sincerely appreciate your vote starting as early as October 6th.
Early voting is October 6th through the 21st. Election Day, October 26th. Thank you and good night.